Okay, let's go run through the art museum. We looked at the Mona Lisa. Let's skip past this. Let's skip past this. All right, and we finished with Lady with an Ermine. Okay, so I got a story time for you. We got the 12 apostles or 12 disciples, and Jesus was taking them to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. That's the wrong quote up there. That's from a previous story. Huh? We did this? We did the Last Supper? Okay. All right. Yeah, it feels very familiar. It just wasn't in your notes. All right. That might have finished us for Leonardo da Vinci. Did we do the Madonna and Child? Okay. All right. So we finished Leonardo da Vinci. All right, Raphael is one of the big giants of the Renaissance. And he did lots of paintings of Madonna and Child. That's he's famous for. He's famous for a lot of things, but one of the things that he's famous for, he did lots of paintings of Madonna and Child. So let's take a look at a couple of them. The first one is Madonna in the Meadow. Now, look at the composition of this. Do you notice what they're all shaped like? The group of three people together, yeah, they're shaped like a triangle, right there. And there's even a triangle within the triangle, shaped by Jesus and St. John the Baptist. Now, what is the importance or the symbolism of the number 3 in Christianity? It's the Holy Trinity. That's correct. So the 3 of the Holy Trinity is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And so in Renaissance art and in a lot of art you find, or a lot of Christian art, you find groupings of 3, you find triangular compositions, and all of that is to reference the Holy Trinity. So yeah, we have these groupings that form triangles. Now, I want to remind you guys what an attribute is. I talked a little bit about an attribute last semester. So last semester we talked about this guy. Who is this guy? Yeah, well, they're all the same guy. Right, it's Hercules. That's the Roman name. Heracles is the Greek name. How can you tell it's Heracles or Hercules? What is it? The lion skin, right? That's the attribute. It's a symbol that is with the person that identifies who they are. So if we go back here, and this image of Saint John the Baptist that is in the painting, here he is as a baby in our painting that we're looking at, but there's another painting of him, and it's the same guy as an adult. Now, what's the attribute that shows who he is? Right. It's not just a staff, but it's a very long cross, right? It's a staff with a cross at the end, right? So that is the attribute of Saint John the Baptist. All right. So I just kind of wanted to share like that with that triangular composition and attributes. So this is our artwork that you'll need to know for the test. And in this Madonna of the Goldfinch. And here we have a couple of kids and a mother. Now, between those two kids, who are the two kids? It's okay. It's the same as before. Who are the two kids? John and Jesus. So which one is which? How can you tell? Yes. What about the cloth? That's another attribute of St. John. He wears, I think, a bearskin. Right? There's a story time that I need to tell about that, I guess. I don't know that story. I will find out. But he wears a bearskin. That's another attribute. So, so if we go back even to here, here he's wearing that bearskin on the right. All right, that's one of the attributes of St. John. Anyways, we have a children and a mother. The children are doing what children do. One child is showing an animal to the other. Perhaps it's a pet. And Madonna is distracted from a reading, and she looks down at St. John, aware of Christ's future. What's Christ's future? Yeah, he's going to get crucified on the cross. And then we have this triangular composition again. Not only is this triangular composition a symbolic because of its number, but it's also a balancing composition. That the Renaissance artists are very keen about having things balanced. That everything has, whatever you do on the left side, you got to do it on the right side, and it creates this stable composition. And the Renaissance artists were interested in perfection and the eternal, and these solid compositions, these even compositions. And we saw it in the Last Supper. We had Christ in the middle, and then we have a group of three to his left and another group of three to his left. And then we had a group of three to his right and another group of three to his right. Everything is very mathematically balanced on both sides. And that is a common thing in Renaissance art. In this painting, the head of Jesus looks a bit odd, but that's okay. It's Raphael. All right, say John is holding out the goldfinch to Christ, who strokes its head. And the goldfinch is a symbol of the Christ's passion. And the Christ's passion is the story of when he was arrested and then to when he was crucified. So this foretells of Christ's terrible future. So during Christ's trip to Calgary, a goldfinch landed on Christ to remove the thorns from his head as he was wearing the crown of thorns. And the bird's feathers became stained from the Christ's blood, and hence the color of the bird. And then if we look at the pose of Christ, it's a very contrapposto pose. It's kind of odd to see a baby in contrapposto, but that's what's going on here. Again, the Renaissance artists are looking back to the classical Greek and Roman sculptures and artwork. And then Christ's foot is on his mother. We have a little bit of skin-to-skin contact, and it shows the closeness between Christ and his mother. And then in the background, we have these beautiful landscape, a lot of details of, looks like a couple of cities back there, and a beautiful example of atmospheric perspective. And then I also wanted to show you how far the mother and child image has come since the late Gothic era or the late medieval era. That over here on this is late medieval Italy, and it's so very flat. We have that gold leaf as the background symbolizing the eternal, and then we have all these angels and saints to the left and the right, and it just seems so very flat and unrealistic. And then in the Renaissance, they've gotten much better at making things look realistic. They haven't perfected it yet, but it is much closer to true realism. All right, we're going to move on to Rome, and we're going to move into the Vatican City. You ever heard of the Vatican City before? Smallest country in the world. That is correct. All right, and the country of Vatican City is within the city of Rome. You see that little red almost circle inside of Rome. That is Vatican City, the country. It is the capital. It's the capital of the Catholic religion. And here's a closer view of Vatican City. The main thing that I want you to know is that here is St. Peter's Basilica. We talked about Old St. Peter's during last semester, and this is New St. Peter's. So Old St. Peter's was falling apart after a good 500 years and almost 1,000 years. And then they tore it down and built New St. Peter's. They built it bigger, better, grander, and so there's a lot of artwork in here, and this is the capital of the Catholic Empire. Just off to the left, we're going to take a look at these buildings here in a moment. But first, let me introduce you to the Vatican City. All right, pay attention.
Vatican City, capital of the Catholic Church, home to the Pope, owner of impressive collections of art and history, all contained within the borders of the world's smallest country, conveniently circumnavigatable on foot in only 40 minutes. Just how did the world end up with this tiny nation? The short answer is because Mussolini, and the long answer is fiendishly complicated, so here's a simplified medium version. The popes used to rule a country called the Papal States that covered much of modern-day Italy. It was during this 1,000-plus-year reign that the popes constructed St. Peter's Basilica, the largest church in the world, and also built a wall around the base of a hill known as Vatican, upon which St. Peter's stood. But the Kingdom of Italy next door thought Rome would make an awesome capital for their country, and so conquered the Papal States. His nation destroyed, the Pope hid behind the walls of Vatican and conflictingly refused to acknowledge that the Kingdom of Italy existed, while simultaneously complaining about being a prisoner of the Kingdom of Italy, which, according to him, didn't exist. Rather than risk religious civil war by getting rid of the Pope, the Kingdom of Italy decided to wait him out, assuming he'd eventually give up. But religion is nothing if not obstinate, and 5 popes, and 60 years later, nothing had changed. Which now brings us to Benito Mussolini, the then Prime Minister of Italy, who was tired of listening to the Pope complain to Italian Catholics about his self-imposed imprisonment, so Mussolini thought he could score some political points by striking a deal which looked like this. 1. Italy gave the land of Vatican to the Pope, and 2. Italy gave the Pope a bunch of apology money. In return, the Pope acknowledged that Italy existed, and 2. The Pope promised to remain neutral in politics and wars, on the off chance that, Mussolini thought this might be a thing. The deal was signed, and a new country, Vatican City, was born. And today, the tiny nation on the hill has all the things you'd expect of a country. Its own government that makes its own laws that are enforced by its own police, who put people who break them in its own jail. It also has its own bank and prints its own stamps and issues its own license plates, though only its citizens can drive within its borders, presumably because of the terrible parking. And as the true mark of any self-respecting nation, it has its own top-level domain, .va. But despite all these national trappings, Vatican City is really not like any other country. Hold on to your fancy hat, because it's about to get weird. To understand the Vatican, there are 2 people and 2 things you need to know about. The famous Pope, the incredibly confusing Holy See, the country of Vatican City, and along with that, the almost completely unknown King of Vatican City. But first, the Pope, who gets a throne to sit upon, and from which he acts as the bishop for all the Catholics in Rome. Actually, all bishops in the Catholic Church get their own thrones, but because the Bishop of Rome is also the Pope, his throne is special and has its own special name. The Holy See. Every time a pope dies or retires, there is a sort of Game of Thrones to see which of the bishops will next get to occupy the Holy See. So while popes come and go, the throne is eternal, and as such, the name of the Holy See not only refers to the throne, but also all the rules that make the Catholic Church the Catholic Church. When Mussolini crafted that aforementioned deal, technically he gave the land of Vatican City to the Holy See, which, believe it or not, is a legal corporate person in international law. Basically, every time you hear the words the Holy See, think Catholic Church Incorporated, of which the Pope is the CEO. Now, back to the King. The King of Vatican City has absolute unchecked power within the country's borders, and his presence makes Vatican City one of only 6 remaining absolute monarchies in the world, including Brunei, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Swaziland. The King's absolute power is why Vatican City can't join the European Union, because only democracies are allowed. Though Vatican City does, strictly speaking, have a legislative branch of government staffed by cardinals appointed by the Pope, the King of Vatican City can overrule their decisions at any time for any reason. So why do you never hear about the King of Vatican City? Because though King and Pope are 2 different roles, they just happen to be occupied by the same person at the same time, which has the funny consequence that because the Pope is elected and the King is all-powerful, but they're the same guy, it makes Vatican City the world's only elected, non-hereditary absolute monarchy. It's this dual role that makes untangling Vatican City so difficult, because the Pope, depending on the situation, acts either as the king of the country of Vatican City or the Pope of the Holy See. Got it? No? Okay, here's an analogy. Imagine if a powerful international company, say Gray Industries, had a CEO who convinced the United States to give one of its islands to the company, which then made the island into a new country, Graytropolis, with an absolute monarchy as its government, and the law that the king of Graytropolis is, by definition, the CEO of Gray Industries. It's pretty obvious at this point that the CEO should move his corporate headquarters to the new nation so that the laws of the country can benefit the company, and the company's global reach can benefit the country. As for the man in the middle, sometimes it's good to be the CEO, and sometimes it's good to be the king. That is essentially Vatican City. But if you're still confused, don't worry. Even other countries can't keep it straight. For example, the United Nations has the Holy See, the corporation, as a member, but not Vatican City, the actual country. And the Holy See gives passports to Vatican City citizens that other countries accept, even though those passports come from a company, not a country. And speaking of Vatican City citizens, they are perhaps the strangest consequence of the Pope's dual role as religious leader and monarch. While other countries mint new citizens with the ever-popular process of human reproduction, Vatican City does not. No one in Vatican City is born a citizen, and that's not just because within a rounding error there are no female Vaticans. The only way to become a citizen is for the King of Vatican City to appoint you as one, and the King only appoints you a citizen if you work for the Pope, who is also the King. And because the King is all-powerful, your citizenship is at his whim. If you quit your job for the Pope, the King, who is also the Pope, will revoke your citizenship. These rules mean that Vatican City doesn't have a real permanent population to speak of. There are about 500 full citizens, which is fewer people than live in single skyscrapers in many countries. And all these citizens work for the Holy See as either cardinals or diplomats or the Pope's bodyguards or other Catholic-related jobs. So it's best to think of Vatican City as a kind of sovereign corporate headquarters that grants temporary citizenship to its managers, rather than as a real city-state like Singapore, which has a self-reproducing population of citizens engaged in a variety of economic activities, both of which Vatican City lacks. But in the end, the reason the world cares about Vatican City is not because of the citizens within its walls, but because of the billion members of its church outside of those walls.
All right. So now you understand the Vatican City? I thought so. Anyways, we're going to go to the Vatican City, and here is the old New St. Peter's Basilica, and right next door to it is the Sistine Chapel, which we'll look at very soon. And then right next to the Sistine Chapel is this building called the Stanze. And we're going to step inside. So this is just a 3D version. Come on. All right, so this is the artwork that we're going to look at, the School of Athens. And if we look to the left, that is the mural for poetry. And if we look facing the School of Athens, that is the mural for theology. And over here on the right side of the School of Athens is jurisprudence. And then if we look straight up, excuse me, at the ceiling, we can see, I think that's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John portraits up there, right? But anyways, this is, this is our building, and this is our mural that we're going to look at. All right, School of Athens by Raphael. And what we have is quite a large fresco with lots of people in it. And then we have this grand architecture. It's almost like the architecture that we saw in the Baths of Caracalla in Rome. These huge arches, these barrel vaults with coffers in them, and then lots of architecture to the left and to the right. And all these people are on the stairs going up to this walkway down, looks like a corridor. And the Italians are quite fond of linear perspective and that's how one of their new tools to make things look realistic. So whenever they can use linear perspective, they do. So we got orthogonals and linear perspective. You guys should know these terms already. In the center of the main two main figures, on the left is Plato and on the right is Aristotle. And Plato is, both of these are philosophers, and they are holding on to the books that they had written. And these are contrasting philosophies. Plato on the left liked things that were ethereal, things that are not tangible. Does everybody know what tangible means? Tangible means you can touch it, all right? So Plato liked more like ideas, or he liked things of the air and atmosphere, whereas Aristotle liked things that were tangible, things like earth and water, and even the colors of their clothes refer to what they are interested in. For example, Plato is in purple and red, which are symbols of air and fire. Right, so the colors of his clothes represent what he is interested in. Aristotle is more interested in tangible things like earth and water. So his clothes are brown and blue. And then Plato points up to the sky, referring to air. And Aristotle has his palm down to the earth, referring to the earth and things that are tangible. So, they are, their poses and their clothes refer to the things that they are interested in. And this is just for fun. It looks like, you put a couple of basketballs in there, they'll look like the Harlem Globetrotters. All right. So on the left, we have all the philosophers that are in agreement with Plato or that think like Plato. And then down in the lower left, we have Pythagoras, your favorite philosopher. A couple years ago when I showed this, everybody in the class groaned because they're dealing with Pythagoras in their math classes and they're having a hard time of it. In the lower right, we have Euclid, who is working with geometry. And you can see that if you zoom in, he's working on a geometric form right there. Anyways, this shows two different philosophies in one painting. And it shows that they are reconciling. So they're all sharing knowledge together. And also, this is also a symbol of paganism and Christianity working together. So here, everybody is sharing knowledge and interacting with knowledge. And so it shows a unity. Instead of being divisive, they're being unified. In the background, we have a statue of Apollo and then one of Athena. Diogenes is in there. He's laying on the stairs. And then we have this figure right here, Heraclitus, and he's not engaged with the others. He's lost in his own thoughts. And Heraclitus was added later. He was not originally there when the painting was first painted. He wasn't on there, and so, but he is painted as Michelangelo. So the character is Heraclitus, but he looks like Michelangelo, and he's even in a pose similar to one of Michelangelo's pieces that we'll see very soon. And then in the upper right or in the lower right, uh, Raphael has painted himself amongst the astronomers. And this shows that artists are seeing themselves now as kind of like rock stars of the day, whereas before they were only seen as workers. They had the same level and class as the people that made shoes, as the people that laid brick, as the people that built homes. They had the same, they were just a craftsman. But now they're beginning to be seen as individuals and have individual tastes, and their artwork is showing that taste. And that is a part of that Renaissance humanism where we begin to have these quote unquote like rock stars. All right, so that finishes us with Raphael. Are there any questions about anything that we've looked at so far with Raphael? Okay, so let's go to Michael. How are we doing on time? We got 7 minutes. All right. We can begin Michelangelo. While we're waiting for this to kick up, I'm going to be absent on Thursday. I have to do jury duty. So I am taking the day off and going downtown into the courts. And hopefully I'll be back soon. All right. So much art history, never enough time to cover it all. So let's go run through the art museum. And all right, we're on part 3 of 5. So let's look at Michelangelo. We are going back to the Vatican City, and you guys remember Old St. Peter, and it was built directly on top of the tomb of St. Peter, and there's an altar placed upon it. They tore down that old St. Peter's and they built new St. Peter's. All right, so let's take a walk up to St. Peter's. We're going to go to. So these are the main doors of New St. Peter. And just to give you a sense of the scale of this building, and you can see how massive it is on the inside. There's lots of art in this building. You can see the baldacchino right there in the distance for you guys at Park. It's right there. And then we're going to look just to the right. So as soon as you walk in and look to the right, there's a barrel vault. Let's look to the right. There we go. Right there is our next artwork. And it's the Pietà. and it is behind bulletproof glass now. It was attacked back in the 70s. I'll talk about that when I do the art crimes. But that gives you a sense of the space that it's in. So we're going to stop there and there we go. We'll write that down and then that'll be it for today. I'll talk about it tomorrow. Oh, you can get your phones now. Yeah. All right. I'm going to turn on the lights. 3, 2, 1. Lights. Excuse me.